Hi, I'm Dr. Johnny Drain, food scientist, and today I'm going to be talking about umami. It has been shown in some recent studies that if you dry mushrooms, any mushrooms, for about 2 to 3 hours in the sun, then what happens is we see an increase in the amount of amino acids, we see an increase in the amount of vitamin D and the bioavailability of that vitamin D. Once the drying in the sun has been done, we've created all of these guanolates and these glutamates, but if we then rehydrate our mushrooms, for example, we can have the original texture of the mushrooms, but we retain all of the guanolates, nucleotides that have been created. So it's a double whammy, it's a win-win. In these few episodes, I've been furthering my exploration of umami, talking to Dr. Kumiko, who spoke to me about how we can use umami ingredients to reduce the amount of salt in our cooking, how we can actually get an abundance of umami from non-meat ingredients. Dr. Kumiko spoke of soybeans being the meat of the field, which is a phrase I love, and how much protein they have. And of course, we now know that protein means the potential to have amino acids, which can give us umami. I also chatted with Dr. David Quist from Ninomiya in Norway, and he also spoke about his interest and his work in umami. And of course, for him, he's now exploring these fungal organisms that create proteases, enzymes that break down proteins into free amino acids. So his work looks at how to create umami using microorganisms. So we've seen that within nature, we can get umami from lots of ingredients, yes, from meat and shellfish, but also from vegetables and fungi. And we can also even dive down into the world of the microscopic and use enzymes that are produced by microorganisms, fungi, to create umami. And David spoke very passionately about how he believes that some of these things and how umami fundamentally can be used as a tool to overcome some very serious challenges that the world faces in terms of how it feeds itself and weaning itself off its addiction to meat. I spoke to Dr. Kumiko about misunderstandings that she's encountered in her work as an umami expert, and what I wanted to share with you is this idea of how umami and fermentation are connected, and there's perhaps two misunderstandings around this. The first is that some people think that all umami comes from fermented ingredients, and that's simply not true. We have sources of umami, many of them, that are from fresh, unfermented ingredients. Secondly, there's a misunderstanding that whenever you ferment, you are producing umami flavors, and that's also not true. When we make, for example, soy sauce or miso, it's a fermentation and we are producing umami in those cases, but equally we can ferment beer or wine. That is a fermentation, but those end products do not have any significant umami content in them. One of the other misunderstandings that Dr. Kumiko was talking about was this idea that when she speaks to students about glutamates and umami, they said to her, oh, well, when they saw the structure of a glutamate, that's a chemical that's not found in the food, the natural food that we cook with or that we use or that we grow. And that's another misunderstanding that I find commonly as a scientist, people saying that their food is chemical free or that they want their food to be chemical free. And the good news or the bad news, but the news is that all of your food is chemicals. It is made of chemical compounds. So a carrot is simply a collection of chemical compounds, and most of the names that scientists have for those compounds that are in carrots are long and you wouldn't know them and they might look a bit scary, but the carrot is made of those things in the same way that a tomato is, or a piece of meat or a shellfish or a soybean. And just because we are not familiar with some of the language or the names that chemists or material scientists use to describe what's in our food doesn't mean that it's bad. It's just what's in our food. And Dr. Kumiko used that example of H2O, water, which I think most of us will be familiar with. Water is found in carrots, water is found in soybeans, and it is just another chemical compound. But in all of the stuff that we eat, there's water and lots of other chemical compounds. It's nothing to be scared of. It's just what food is made of. Thanks for joining me again. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you learned something. If you want to delve deeper into the world of umami, I think you should, then follow the links